Hey guys, Crazy Teacher Nick here. You guys have been asking me, please Teacher Nick, give us the paper 1B, give us the continuation. I'm sorry guys, I've been really busy at the moment. It's been absolutely crazy. So today, hopefully in that, I'm going to get some of this going for you guys. It is a bit of a continuation of the last, of the paper 1, question 1A. I'm going to do a bit of a run through. I've got a new paper for you. One of my best students in that, one of my better students, and she's done some great work with this paper. So I know you guys are writing in a few days' time, so hopefully this video basically is going to help you guys. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so when we were looking at the paper 1A, you guys are going to remember the steps that I asked you guys to make sure that you're thinking about. Remember, think. Okay, read the question carefully, guys. Make sure you understand that question. Do not rush it. I know you've seen 150 practice papers, but please make sure each question is there to help you. Okay, when you're reading the text, read that text 3 times. When you walk into your exam room, okay, just read the text to get your mind into the game. Then you've got to read the text closely, okay? Make sure you read it at least twice so that you know, okay? Annotate the text. Annotate the text based on your key conventions. You should know your key conventions right now. At the end of this, I'll give you guys Lilica from Cambridge at Home. She gives you a wonderful walkthrough on how to look at the key conventions, but your key conventions are your guide, okay? Then, most importantly, okay, planning. You're going to plan your 1B before you write your 1A. You're going to make sure that you know what you're going to be putting into that text. Okay, so you've planned for your 1B, and the ideas behind the planning for the 1B is what you're going to write into your 1A. Okay, so now we've got to write the 1B. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to write that 1B and be effective? So, firstly, I wanted to bring up what is comparative analysis. Okay, so Google says comparative, and this is Google. Okay, everything, you know, that Google says has to be absolutely 100% correct, right? Okay, so comparative analysis is the process of comparing items to one another. So comparing one to the other and distinguishing, being precise like Teacher Adna says, distinguishing the similarities and the differences. So that is what you're getting marked for, your understanding of the similarities and the differences between 2 types of texts. How do you compare these? Okay, and the evidence that you select from both texts. Remember, when you wrote the 1A, you created that evidence. You are the one who actually created that evidence for yourself. Okay, so it all comes down to planning, guys. Okay, if at this stage you still haven't got into the idea of planning, okay, it might be a little bit difficult. Okay, but at least you can think now. I've got to plan this out. I've got to think about what I'm going to be writing in 1B. Okay, so I plan 1B before I write the 1A. Crazy as it sounds, guys, that is the way to do it. So, when you annotated the original text, remember when you were reading through the text, you were annotating that text. These are the things that you are looking for, and they're going to come back. And I warn you now, they are going to come back, okay, when we're writing this. So you were annotating, making sure that you understood the overall focus of the original text. Okay, what is the overall idea? What is the main idea behind the original text? You need to know your key conventions. Guys, I cannot tell you how important these key conventions are. They are helping us make the decisions. You need to know all of your language devices. You need to know all of your structural devices, okay? This can also include aspects of form, and we're going to see how that works, okay? Then any other structural or linguistic device that you have, this is your plan. This is what you're going to be looking for when you're annotating the original text. Remember, you might not be able to annotate everything. Okay, you might not be able to see everything, and you're not expected to see everything. Okay, you just basically need to remember that you have about 300 and 350 to 350 words roundabout, okay, in question 1B. Now remember, words are not important. It's the time that is most important here. So 1A, you wrote about 150 words. 1B, you're aiming for around about 350 to, around about 350 words is your mid mark of where you're aiming. Do not write less than that, guys, because you need to basically show off your knowledge here. Okay, so overall focus, key conventions, language devices, structural devices when you're annotating that original text. When you are writing your 1A, okay, remember you plan for this, okay? You plan 1B when you write 1A, okay? So when you wrote 1A, you included an overall focus. You made sure that that was clear in your text. You made sure that you adhered to the key conventions in your text, that you created language devices in your text, okay? Any structural devices in your text. Now remember, okay, how do I go back? Do I go back like this? Okay, those overall focus, those key conventions, those language devices, those structural devices, okay, those are the ones that you identified and you planned to make sure that you're going to be comparable with them in the 1B writing. Okay, so you planned when you wrote 1A to have these in your 1B. Okay, your structural devices that are either similar or different. Language devices similar or different. Okay, you created these effects to be comparable. You created them. Okay, now you can't create them for every single one, but let's have a look at an example. Okay, oh, before I forget. Big mistake, guys, that I'm seeing a lot of students making. Okay, when we are comparative, okay, we got to use those comparative connectives. Here's a list of a couple of comparative connectives. Okay, so when they are similar, okay, you might have phrases like also, or equally, or just like, or likewise, or in the same way. Okay, comparative connectives where they are different. Okay, on the other hand, however, in contrast, okay, unlike, okay, on the contrary, these are all when they are opposite, and then you got the other ones when they are similar, just as. Okay, so you must know these comparatives. You want to use them, okay, to show the examiner, okay, this is the first thing. On the other hand, this is the second thing. Okay, they're different. Or if they're the same, okay, equally, this one, this text is the same as this text, or uses the same effects as this text. Okay, similar or comparative, mix them up a little bit. Okay, as a rule of thumb, guys, as a rule of thumb, and I'll explain to you maybe later why I'm doing it this way. When it comes to language devices, you want to basically have, because of your timing, you want to have about 2 language devices, okay, from the original text and your text, and 2 structural devices from the original text and your text, okay, on average. Because of timing, you've only got about 350 words. And when we look at a student example, okay, you'll see what this student has done, which I think is actually a very smart move on their behalf. So this is a different exam paper. This was the May-June 2022, so basically a year ago and 3 days from now. Okay, that's the paper 1, it's the paper 1-3. Okay, so again, remember what I said to you guys, read the question, make sure you understand what the question is asking. Okay, so read the following text. It's a report, so that's our original text from a website, okay, for Greenpeace about the forest fires in Siberia. Okay, your job is to basically, you are a resident, so remember that's important. You're writing a diary, know your key conventions, okay? And you got to write about 150 words. This question's only about 10 marks. Question 1B, this is our focus for today. Compare your diary entry with the report, analyzing form, structure, and language. Form, structure, and language. Okay, so the structure of your 1B, should pretty much look like this. It should have an overall focus for the original text and your text, the key conventions of the original text and your text, some language devices, okay, from the original text and your text, structural devices, okay, from the original text or your text. It can include aspects of form as well there. Okay, so that is basically what your structure is going to look like. Okay, so we go forward. So this is the question. So now we're going to look at what the student has done for their 1A. Okay, so I'm going to pause, or tell you guys to pause, read through the text, and then I'm going to make a couple of comments here. Okay, student has started out Dear Diary. Please guys, don't forget there's a comma after Dear Diary. Okay, 1 week ago, strange men arrived in Bogachani, telling stories and making promises about how they were coming to help the people of the region to go back to a life free of toxins and smoke. Very long structural sentence there. Okay, remember guys, this is a diary. It's introspective, my thoughts, my feelings. Okay, you can also use short form sentences as well, okay, which is something that we might expect in a diary there too. When I first heard they were from Greenpeace, Russia, I can't say I was impressed. Okay, my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas. So I like that. Oh boy. Okay, another group of do-gooders with empty words, here to save the poor, suffering people of Siberia. We certainly haven't heard that before. Okay, a little bit of sarcasm, so there's a difference in tone here. Okay, again, these are features, whether you're going to discuss them or not, that you want to make sure you include in the text. Okay, student goes on. Over and over again, okay, some little bit of repetition there. Organizations come and promise change. Over and over again, you see, I can see that the student is creating these effects. They might not discuss them in the original text, but they are creating them, and that is important. Okay, the Ministry of Emergencies and Defense send their machines and helicopters, and we are told to stay indoors. Over and over again, I watch fires burn and forests blaze. Okay, nice use of words there, because it's never worth the trouble it would take to put out. Okay, again, quite an acidic tone. Okay, quite a strong tone. At first, I thought these so-called saviors from Greenpeace would be no different, but something is happening. There are whispers of hope. Again, short sentences, structural devices that the student has used here. Over the weeks, they were here. There was talk of a national petition being launched and the Ministry of Natural Resources playing ball for the first time. Okay, so some colloquial language there, which is good. Could this be the spark that lights the flames? Very interesting. Okay, nice use of language there to finally bring the change that was promised. Okay, again, you guys can pause and read this anytime you like. Okay, but overall, I'm pretty happy with what the student has done here. So what are the examiners looking for? Okay, in terms of marking the 1A. So guys, I'm going out on a limb here. This is my estimate. Remember, was I able to see some key conventions? Was the purpose clear to me? Is the audience clear to me? I agree. I think I can definitely see these. The use of language and structure is adapted to suit the task. I think the student could have done, you know, a little bit more on the sentence structures, maybe you know, but again, you only have about 150 words. So, you know, I think for the amount of time that the student has taken, I think that it's actually, the 1A is quite well written. Okay. It included the thoughts and feelings, definitely personal experience, descriptive in places. There's definitely a tone. You can feel that. It does create an effect. Okay, so this question 1A is separated into two parts. The 5 marks for understanding the original text. Okay, not cut and pasting, but showing that you understand the original text. We've discussed this in the other video. And then obviously this is the writing part in that, where there's 5 marks for the writing creatively, accurately, appropriately, and for a range of audiences and purposes. And I've given the student an 8 out of 10. Okay, I've given the student an 8 out of 10. I think that's a very fair mark for the piece of text. Again, guys, you can go back and check on it if you want to. Okay. Let's have a look at the student's 1B. Now remember, one of the things that the very first thing we had to think about in our planning was basically the overall focus of both the texts. Okay, the overall focus of both texts. Okay, suggesting ways in which they are similar and different. Okay, so the first text is a website report published by the environmental organization Greenpeace. Okay, that we already know. Suggesting the original purpose would be to inform. Okay, good. Concerned citizens or environmental enthusiasts about the forest fires burning in Siberia. However, there's that comparative connective, the frequent use of persuasive devices throughout the report. Interesting. Chiefly the use of facts and statistics. Good. Okay, those are nice devices there. Combined with descriptive and emotive language would suggest a subtle secondary purpose of trying to persuade its readers to help and support Siberian citizens, perhaps via donations or volunteer work. Very good. Okay, that is actually brilliant. I like that a lot. The diary, on the other hand, very typically good. Would only be read by the writer, suggesting the sole purpose of the text would be to express personal thoughts and emotions. Good. Yeah, I like that. I think that is actually concise, precise, to the point. Student is showing their knowledge, okay, of basically the overall text. Yeah, I'm actually quite happy with that. Let's go on. Let's have a look at the next part. So remember that basically we also want to see the key conventions. The report does not adhere to many of the typical key conventions. Good, so the student is showing their understanding of the key conventions of a report, but is instead written in the present tense. Okay, is written in the first person plural perspective. Interesting. I'd love to have seen why the student thinks that, but it's a good point still. This again perhaps could be seen, there we go, as a persuasive device by making the events of the text feel relevant. Fantastic. Happening to multiple people at the moment, and hence more likely to persuade the audience to want to do something about the problem that is still prominent. Okay. Oppositely, there's that connective. Okay. The diary does adhere to the key conventions. So see how clever she did that? She basically said, the first one doesn't adhere, this one does adhere. I love that. That is very, very clever. And unlike the report uses the first person singular, there's a comparison, and is written in the past tense, there's a comparison, except for the last sentence. Interesting. This could have been done as a way of leaving the text with a non-concluding. I'm assuming she means non-conclusion or without a conclusion, suggesting to the writer themselves does not know how the events are going to play out. Very clever. So student is actually saying, I actually created this effect on purpose, okay? So I think that is very, very clever. Okay, I'm very happy with that. The report makes use of, okay, so I remember now. So the report makes use of the direct quotes from the villagers at 2 points in the text. So direct quotes, okay. This could be done in a way of creating atmosphere, okay, perhaps. For example, one person says, "We have nowhere to hide," making a quote. A very sudden and suspenseful sentence that leaves an impression on the audience by forcing them to think about these as real human experiences. Good. The direct quotations also provide more insight into the lives of the Siberian people and gives the text a more narrative style of writing. Okay. So structural devices, which is very, very good. Okay. On the other hand, the diary makes use of the inner monologue, okay, structural device. That certainly haven't, we certainly haven't heard that before. Okay, good. Inside of providing atmosphere, the exclamation is meant as sarcastic. Remember, we picked up that tone. Perhaps even demonstrates a more subtle hidden frustration or anger about the situation to the audience. For that reason, the style of the text comes across as much more conversational. Good, all very good structural devices, okay, very cleverly put together. Okay, I like that a lot. Okay, let's have a look here. So both texts create imagery for the reader through the use of word classes or nouns associated with the fires. So it's a focus on some language devices here. The report mentions carcinogen, diseases, and fog, while the diary refers to toxins and smoke. So here we've got comparatives that are similar. Both of these examples are forms of visual and perhaps tactile imagery, very clever, possibly done as a way of getting readers not just to picture the scene, but to feel the thickness of the smoke and the infection in the air. For the report, this could be a way of getting readers to sympathize with the villagers. Another example of a call to action. Okay, I think the student could have done a little bit more on the language devices here. They've identified basically the word classes. Lexical field is something that they could have also raised here. But in general, it's okay. It works quite nicely. I'm not too upset with it. I think now I know that the students said to me when they actually were doing this text, they did spend less time on question 1 to be able to spend more time on question 2, to be more effective on question 2. So that is a decision that the student has made. Remember, guys, your timing is very important. 60 minutes is the maximum amount of time you want to spend on question 1. Question 2, you've got probably about 65 minutes, maybe 70 minutes at the very most, because it's an hour and 15-minute paper. And the question 2, you are going to have to spend a little bit more time on. So I think that the decision that the student has made here is a good one. Okay. You guys can take a look through basically the and we say this is where what students might compare and analyze. Okay, the form obviously is going to include those key conventions. Okay, the structure, some of the things the student could have also discussed is basically the way in which the paragraphs or the sections are used. Chronology, obviously it being a diary, I would have thought about the chronology, references to time, and you guys can read through some of those. But it's interesting in that parenthesis, okay, parenthetical phrases, always something that's worth discussing under language. Emotive language is something there. And guys, just a little hint, if you're ever stuck for looking for something when you're doing analysis, start with the adjectives. Okay, go to the adjectives. Remember, they're going to be describing something. So the grade for this text, and that I graded an overall 19 out of 25. Okay. Remember, for this question 1B, there's 5 marks for the reading. Okay, I gave the student a 4 out of 5 there. And then for the analysis, and that last section, that last part about the language devices, I wasn't 100% happy with it. If I was a little bit happier, I might have given a 12 out of 15. An 8 out of 10, which would have basically given them a 12 out of 15. I gave the student a 7 out of 10 there, which basically gave the student a 19 out of 25. However, I know the student is definitely going to be in the 80s or above. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the work that the student is producing at the moment. Okay, so if you guys need any further support, okay, I will link Teacher Adna's YouTube channel into the description below. Lilica, Cambridge at Home, go to her, look for key conventions, but she's got some great YouTube videos, how to study, how to think, and lots of other great work. And then Mr. Everything English, he's got 2 very excellent videos. I will link them into, although it's GCSE, the videos are actually very, very good, discussing structural and language devices. Guys, you must know them. You've got to study them. Okay. Now it's up to you. Go write your exams. Stay focused. Be awesome. Okay. Rock on, guys. And please like and subscribe. And I will try and make some videos. I'm sorry if this one seems a bit rushed. But hit me up with some questions if you got any questions, guys. I can answer questions very, very easily. Okay, and best of luck. You guys are going to be absolutely brilliant.